Hi, I'm Sonny.
I'm Denise.
And we're here today to do a review of a board game called Cleopatra.
And the Society of Architects. Cleopatra has offered a fine prize to the architect who can build her the finest palace in the world. The players play the role of the architect, and during the game you will build the palace while competing for the riches Cleopatra has to offer.
And this game is by designers Bruno Cathala and Ludovic Maublanc. I hope I'm not butchering their names. And the art has been done beautifully by Julien Delval. It's a game by Days of Wonder, published in America by Days of Wonder anyway, in the year 2006. It's for 3 to 5 players, and the playing time will be approximately 60 minutes. The game is really fun. You play with 4 to 5 people. It's best to play with 4 to 5 because you have some interaction going on there. And it's really a set collection game. It's a bit of push your luck, and there's some bidding going on as well. So instead of just talking here, let's set up the board and have a look at the components. Here we are on Board Game Planet. Looks cool, doesn't it? Well, we're gonna have a look at everything on this game, all the rules and everything else. So, as you see, we set up the board, and what you'll see is Cleopatra is right at the start. Nothing's been built yet. The quarry is full of components for you to start building as architects. And the players actually start with 3 cards in their hand. You got 3 Nile merchants. That are basically jokers in the game. You got 2 statues of Anubis that you can put on gardens later on in the game. 1 pyramid to save up all your corruption. And 5 talents, which is basically your victory points within this game. The person with the most talents will win the game in the end. The person with the most corruption will not be eligible for winning the game and will be fed to the crocodile god Sobek. So, when the players start out with having the cards in their hand, the first player can actually choose of one of 2 things. They can either go to the market, get some cards, or go to the quarry, build some components. Let's explain the cards first. In the game, we got 6 kinds of basic cards. You've got your artisan cards, you got your stone, you got your marble, you have your wood, and you got your lapis. And these components are your resources for building every component in the game. And the components that you can build in this game are sphinxes, obelixes, pieces of the throne, walls, doors, all kinds of components of the palace. And you will build the palace kind of like what you see in the video right now. You build it all together, and it looks great afterwards. Now, apart from these 6 standard resource cards, there's also tainted resource cards. And these tainted resource cards have a little red amulet on it, a corruption amulet. And every time you use one of those, you get an extra resource, but you also get corrupted. And when that happens, you have to take one of the corruption amulets and put it in your pyramid like so. So, at the end of the game, you add up all those amulets, and the one who has the most of them loses. So, don't use them too much, because you'll pay for it in the end. Push your luck right there. So, other cards that are in there are also special character cards. And these special character cards, they also are tainted, so you will pay a price for them, but they'll give you special abilities like steal a card from somebody or get a specific card out of the market stall. So you can use those cards as well. When you pick a card, you can pick it from one of the 3 market stalls that are laid out before you. Now in the beginning there's only 1 card in each stall, but you have to pick one of the 3 stalls. So when I pick the first one, for example, I only get 1 card, but then I have to lay down the cards, and then 2 stalls will have 2 cards, and the 3rd one will be refilled with 1, and so on. So after a couple of rounds, you have 1 stall that's probably got like 5, 1 that's got like 3, and 1 because somebody just picked it up. So that stacks up. When you take a card from the market, you have to look at it at the end of your picking of the cards. You count your cards, and you have 10 or more cards in your hand. You have to discard back to 10. If you want to discard, if you have, for example, 13 cards, you discard back to 10. You have to pay 1 corruption amulet because you went over the line. But if you decide to keep those cards, so you keep more cards in your hands, you have to pay 1 corruption or you actually receive 1 corruption for every extra card above 10 that you own. So if you have 13 cards in your hand, you can pay 3 corruption, put that in your pyramid, and you can actually keep those in your hand. So instead of visiting the market, you could also build a component. Now this is very much like Settlers of Catan. You have a set collection on your reference sheet that you got, and on that reference sheet you can actually see how much every component costs. So when you actually take one of the pieces from the quarry, you want to build it, you pay for all the components that you need. For example, you need a lapis and an artisan. And if you miss one, you can use a Nile merchant in your collection as a joker, and then you can build that component. Now every time you build a component, you also have to roll the dice. And if you roll the dice, there's a little token that comes up with the dice. You have to stack them up on the altar. And next time, for example, you got 5 dice in the beginning, you roll one of those amulets, one of those signs. Next time you roll the dice, you only have to roll 4, and that stacks up every time somebody builds until it's 5. And then we have to do an offering. And when we do an offering, everybody sticks out their hand, offers the number of victory points that they've already had, and if you have the most victory points, you can actually discard up to 3 of your corruptions. But everybody else gets corruption because they didn't offer enough to the gods. So don't I would say don't think that you can get away with 0 because you get more corruption. Now if you didn't have any corruption before that time, you might as well want to offer 0 and keep your victory cards, or victory points. Every time, of course, when you build a piece of the quarry from a piece of the palace from the quarry, you also get talents. So that's how you build up your victory points in the end. There's a special part, except from the obelisk and everything else, which is the mosaic, which is on top of the pyramid, or on top of the actual building, the sanctuary that you're building, up top of the palace. And when you build those, you can actually create little spaces that no other piece will fit. And when that happens, you can take one of your statues of Anubis, of the 2 that you have, put them in there, and counting the number of spaces that are in there will give you a relief of your corruption on the end. So you can actually wipe out some of your corruption by building a beautiful garden, which is kind of zen that way. So you play on like that every time you actually have a full collection of pieces of the palace. Like you got all sphinxes or all obelisks. Cleopatra takes a step forward, and when 5 of all 6 things have been built, the game ends. Everybody looks at their corruption. When you have the most corruption, you're out of the game, you get fed to the crocodiles, and the person with the most talent points wins. And that's basically the game. So what do we think of it? Well, we'll have a look. What did we think? What do we think?
Well, first I have to say I really like the fact that this game has amazing components.
Amazing.
And the idea of building the palace while you are playing the game, I think that's really neat.
Absolutely, and kind of the fun also of collecting those sets and looking at your components and going like, how much corruption did they take? Am I going too far? Am I going to lose? Because you don't want to be the one with the most, but you don't want to be the one with the fewest either, because that kind of, you're not going to win if you do that. So it's really push you like that.
That was a trap I fell into pretty hardly, because I was like, oh, those tokens, who cares? And then I was like, then I got fed to the crocodile in the end.
Yep. Definitely. So it's a fun game. It's a push your luck game. It has very similar feel to Settlers of Catan without having the look of it, since you are collecting those sets.
And without having the possibility to actually exchange cards and to...
right. The player interactivity is not as good as would be on Catan, since you can trade with players, but here they don't want you to trade, so you take that corruption. So that's the extra element in there. So overall, I would say a fun game. Go out and seek it out if you like this review too. And we'll see you next time.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.